What a beautiful place this is to come and fish. I'm here today at Pisces Country Park. I'm not putting the rod down at all, the bites are instant. I can't believe how good the action is today. Every time I go in, I'm catching a fish. This is a small one, but I'm targeting rudd. You never know what size you're going to catch. This is a tiny one. So normally to fish here, you have to own one of the lodges or rent one of the lodges if you're on holiday. But I'm very lucky the owners, Paul and Alan, have allowed me to come and fish here today. And as I said, it's just a beautiful place to come and fish. I'm using a method which is very little known really in the UK. This particular one is called a Xenos slow sinking feeder. So it's a feeder that's semi-buoyant. It's got some air, I'll explain that later, some air, and it goes slowly through the water. So I'm targeting rudd with this method, which are surface feeding fish. I've got some 2mm pellets and some casters, just squeezing the groundbait so when that feeder hits the surface, most of it will come out. I've got the line clipped up, so I know my distance. Then just a nice, and the fishing's instant. I'm looking at the, it really is instant. I'm into a fish straight away. You cast out, the feeder hits the surface, and into another rudd. It's a method you can use for any sort of, any time you want your feeder to slow sink, even in deep reservoirs, this is a great method to use. These are beautiful fish, they really are. I can just swing that one. Gorgeous. Don't you think rudd is such a colourful fish? That is lovely. So I'm here today, I'm going to explain the method, how to catch, how to use a feeder and the setup and the rigs, but at the moment I'm catching a fish every put in. I'm not putting the rod down at all. The bites are instant. So I have to keep hold of the rod because the bites are so, you know, if I miss a bite, I know it's unusual, but if I miss a bite, I just let the feeder drop back in and then watch it. The idea of this slow sinking feeder is you allow it to drop down, hit the bottom, and then you come in and you repeat the process. So really it's non-stop fishing all the time. So non-stop casting out. That one took every bit of bait. So you have a continual, and what I'm doing is I'm going to feed on the bottom later for some bigger fish. So while I'm doing this, I've got my line clipped up. I'm going to the same place every time with some pellets and casters. Everything's dropping through. So when I go on the bottom, I'm already priming that. I'm catching on the surface now, but I'm priming that bottom area for later, giving the fish time to sort of settle and get on it. 2 maggots on a 12 at the moment. Don't really matter what you put on. Just topping up that feed. I'll show you that in a minute. There's a little bit of water in there. Just casting out to the line clip. Letting the feeder, try and keep the line really tight. That really is instant. Missed that one as well. It's so quick. There's 1 or 2 smaller fish there now, and would you believe the smaller fish are harder to catch because they can't get this 12 hook in their mouth, but they're grabbing hold of the bait. But this is a method you'd use where you can't sit and relax, I'm afraid. You have to just go in, fill up your feeder. The bites are just flicks on the rod tip. Lovely little light cast. I'm watching it tip straight away, bang, 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 bang. I can see 1 or 2 fish on the surface now. Another small one. And it is. I mean, it's just non-stop. Non-stop action. This is a tiny one. Lovely fishing though. And if you're fishing somewhere, I mean, you need good conditions for this. If it's too, I'm only fishing a very light feeder, so if it's too windy, that's difficult to fish. Or if it's too far, if it's a long distance, because it's only a small feeder, but I'm casting probably 25 metres, trying to get loads of bait in there to get bigger rudd feeding. At the moment, there's just loads of everything. So it's one of these all-action methods. Casting in the same place, getting that feeder to drop down nice and light. Hit your clip so you keep your line tight. And there's fish all the way down. It's just another one coming in. And you can use this method for catching carp. You could fish. I was in France the other week and I was using this method but with a banded pellet. So you're throwing out with a banded pellet and of course then you target big fish. And I had one carp which was 12 kilos, what's that, 26 pounds. It took me 45 minutes to get in, but it was on this method, like a slow sinking feeder with a banded pellet. So a lot depends on what bait you're putting on the hook. At the moment, I'm just relying on maggots because I'm fishing for rudd. But if I wanted to fish for carp, I would put a banded pellet on, and you still get the same effect. Just double maggot every time I go out. I'm hooking a fish. Just lightly, just really lightly with that bait. And then as you cast out, try and keep the line tight. Hit your clip. Boom, keep your line tight so you can see your bite and you'll see the bite will flicker. There it goes. Watching it all the way down. And then it hits, once it hits the bottom, then you can come in again. Bigger one this time. Just let it get a bit nearer the bottom, that one, and this is a bigger fish. Oh, I don't know, it might even be a skimmer, but I'll let it go slowly down. Maybe just a big rudd. So it got a bit nearer the bottom. Fabulous. Beautiful with this rod as well, lovely light rod. Oh no, it's a bigger rudd. These are the fish that I'm targeting today. And I'll net this one. And the more feed you get in, the more of these bigger rudd that you get round. Oh, that's a lovely fish. Beautiful, as I say. A lovely, you could call it a golden delicious, couldn't you? Look at that. For some, and look at the quality, look at my filthy hands. Just the quality of the fish. A receding top lip because they fish on the surface, they feed on the surface or near the surface. So the top lip is always set back a bit and the bright red fins distinguish. But that's a pure rudd, probably half a pound, maybe a bit more. That took the bait right down. Lovely fish. Can't believe how good the action is today. I might just be able to lift this one. I'm swapping the baits about a bit, but I've not even got time to rest. Just one fish after another. I'm swapping the baits about a bit. There's so many fish there. And this method is so deadly. So I put double caster on for that one. It's lovely, about 5 ounce, but beautiful fish. Lovely. Right, I'm catching one fish after the other. Let's have a look at exactly what my setup is. You know, how do we work these slow sinking feeders? The rod I've chosen for today is a Xenos Advance 3.3 metre. Fairly short rod. I'm not casting a long distance. A light feeder. Want a light rod. This one is 70 gram casting weight. Only weighs about, I don't know, 150 grams, something like that. Lovely, beautiful, slim blank. It's not an expensive rod. It's sort of like a mid-price, 140, 150 probably, I should think. So mid-price range. Cork and EVA handle. Lovely rings. I'm using a 1 ounce tip. This one comes with 3 tips, like a 1 ounce, 1.5. I'm using a light tip because I'm on a light feeder and just watching for the bite. I'm not really tightening up to it, so I want to see the line and the tip move. The feeder itself, as I explained earlier, is something which really not a lot of anglers know about. Let me show you one. So that's how it works. So normally comes just a bubble there which will float. If I throw this feeder in, it'll float, but I've half filled it up with water. Depending on how much water you put in is how fast it will sink. There's a little grommet there that you can lift out to refill. When you're refilling these, let me show you, it's only a tiny hole, tiny little hole there to fill. So what you have to do, I fill them at home. Use a tap and I fill them at home. But you can fill them on the bank if you sort of get hold of some water in any sort of container and then pour it from a height. If you pour it from a height onto that, then some of it goes in. It takes a little while to do it. And then you can put that grommet back in. So I've put a load more. In fact, the load more went in there. So the more water you put in, then the faster the feeder will sink. If you don't put any water in, it just floats on the top, so you can fish with surface baits. Very, very simple setup. I've got it on a running boom there, 2 little grommets on there to stop it. I've twisted, you probably can't see that properly, but I've twisted the line there so that when it sort of is hanging, can you see how it will hang off, keep away, so you can cast all day without any tangles. And then I've got a tiny, tiny connector bead there, which is threaded inside, which I can just hook my hook length onto. So I can use this for bottom feeders, surface feeders, anything. If I want to put another feeder on, I'll just unclip it there and put the other feeder on. I'm using a fluorocarbon line, 0.15, which is 3 or 4 pound breaking strain, but fluorocarbon is stiffer than normal line, so it tends not to tangle when you're coming back in. Especially with double maggot, it comes back in like a ship's propeller. Fluorocarbon doesn't twist up like normal line would, so if you can, use fluorocarbon, and this is a 0.15, so fairly fine, big hook, a metre long hook length, quite a long hook length. The feeder hits the surface, it will then, the bait then will drop, come in and follow the feeder down as it sinks slowly through the water. And then it's a fish every put in. I just love this rod. The blank is so slim, the rod is light, 11 foot, and with a shorter rod you get more accuracy in casting. The feeder's only 12 grams when it's full, but with that lovely 1 ounce tip I can see every bite, and it's every one a winner. I've got a black viper reel, another one of my favourites, and 0.22 line on it. You've got to watch. I never talk about breaking strains. You've got to watch line. Really, the most important part of line is its diameter, because that denotes, another beautiful little fish, the diameter denotes the casting ability. So a thicker line, it's harder to cast. So keep your line sort of 0.2, 0.22, which would be quite a strong line anyway. You wouldn't get broken with it. But if you can imagine, if your line's too thick, you just can't cast a light feeder. So fairly fine line. This is a Browning feeder line. Strong, it's really strong. It says it's 10 pound. I said, don't worry about that. The diameter, 0.22 millimetre. Beautiful light rod, lovely action for casting, lovely action when you hook into the fish. Packing the feeder with loads of particles. 2 mil hard feed carp pellets just soaked and lots of casters. The casters are coming out straight away. And I'm looking, as I said earlier, I'm looking to actually feed that. Just another, this is another nice fish. There's some beautiful fish in here. So loads of particle baits to actually keep attracting the fish. I'm hoping the pellets are going to the bottom to attract bream and carp. It's another nice fish. Just if you get a chance, try fishing with a floating feeder. Xenos floating feeder, 12 grams. And these are the sort of the quality that you can expect to catch. Just loads of particles going in there. I put double caster on the hook then. It's got a couple of marks on it, that fish. Probably been attacked by a cormorant or something. But look at the quality of the fish. And it's instant. Every time I go out, I'm getting a fish. Just a brilliant way to fish. That's taking it right down. I put double caster on that time, which sometimes with caster you get bigger fish. You never can tell, but often caster will bring you bigger fish. So loads of particles in your feed, it's hitting the surface, exploding, attracting all those surface feeding fish. I've got a slow sinking feeder going down, catching the fish. I've just switched. There's so many fish up in the water that I've just switched to fishing a streamlined window feeder. Pack the bait in so it gets down to the bottom to try and target some of these bigger rudd. There's just hundreds of fish there now. And I've had to put a 6 mil banded pellet. I've also put some maggots on with it just to try and get one or two of these bigger rudd. They seem to be nearer the bottom. Look at that. So all I've done is I've switched feeders, got the bait going to the bottom, and that's a lovely roach. Because you'd expect to catch roach near the bottom, wouldn't you? Look at that. Probably a 6 ounce fish. It's taken a pellet, but I've put 2 maggots on as well, so a combination bait really. Lovely half-pound roach. So just by switching feeders, switching baits, I'm targeting the fish near the bottom. There is 1 or 2 carp in here which we may get a bite from. Great start on that jetline window feeder. This switch to the window feeder has worked to catch. I'm trying to get to the bottom to catch the better quality fish. And it's definitely worked. Just a short tail, 6 mil banded pellet and 2 maggots, so a combination, and definitely catching the slightly better fish where you can get on the bottom. Net this one, but it's a rudd taking it on the bottom as well. So they're going right down. But with that window feeder, I'm cramming the bait in. Nothing's coming out on the way down. So now the fish have gone down to the bottom. Well, I've had a brilliant day here at this Pisces Country Park. It's a natural fishery, not artificially stocked. Loads of real quality fish. Just look at those. Just loads of real quality fish. First of all, catching on the slow sinking feeder up in the water, getting a bite every cast. And now I've gone on the bottom with the window feeder, the streamlined window feeder, 3 maggots and a pellet, 2 or 3 maggots and a pellet. And that's the result. 6 ounce rudd every cast. What a fabulous day's fishing.